Welcome, everyone, to our session on using technology to amplify human presence. So this past semester, we've talked about ways that technology can enhance learning, as well as the things that technology can't replace. Today, we're going to focus on how technology can help us build community, make checking in with students easier, and how it can humanize feedback on assignments that students turn in digitally. First, we're going to use a Padlet, both as a community building measure and as a check-in tool. Then I'll show you how to provide audio and video feedback on Brightspace. And finally, we'll talk about using surveys to identify student needs, and I'll show you where to find the survey tool on Brightspace, as well as why you might choose that tool instead of another tool. So let's kick things off with a Padlet. If you have not used a Padlet before, it looks like this. In the bottom corner, there is a little plus button that will turn into a pencil once you hover over it. When you click on that, the subject will appear like the directions and the top 3 tips line do here. This place is for you to add attachments, whether that's your camera, whether that's to search directly for an image, upload one, etc. And this is where you can type. So we're just going to do something fun to build some community before we start talking about more serious things. My directions are here. It's almost winter break. Woohoo! So what I would like you to do is think of a winter break activity that you enjoy. Then in your post, you can provide your top 3 tips for engaging in that activity. So my example is visiting Shelville, and I have my top 3 tips for visiting Shelville listed here. You do not need to do visiting something. It can be sleeping in your bed, top 3 tips, or top 3 tips for unwrapping a present, whatever creative thing you come up with. So I'll give everyone a minute to type and then we'll look at some responses. You can react to different people's posts. I see the snowman emoji here. You can change what the reactions are. So for example, some other options are to provide like a star rating, like 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars. There are options to allow users to upvote certain posts. I just have it so it's an emoji reaction and that the posts are going to pop up in the order that they appear. That's another thing to point out too, is I have it set so that anyone with the link can edit the Padlet and that you don't need to sign in. There's no sign in required. It will just give you a name. You can change all of those settings as well in case you want to see your student's name. You can also ask them to write their names. I can see people are commenting on each other's posts and are having a conversation, which is awesome. This is just a great way to include a low stakes, low stress community builder that doesn't require any sign in, doesn't require students to sign up for anything. Just something quick and easy that you can do, whether it's in an online class, whether it's in a synchronous class. I used to use these all the time for synchronous classes, just as a, you're coming in the door, it's on the screen, jump in. So you can see things are popping up on my screen as they come in. It updates live. I don't need to keep hitting refresh too. I can see everyone's responses. Students can see everyone's responses. It's nice being able to see everything in one place. So I really don't want to rush anyone, but for the purposes of time,
And one question also, Christian, one thing to point out is that if you're doing it for this just kind of a check-in, having a little bit of fun with it, things like that, it's probably not a problem. If you're using it with some more sensitive issues in your course, you can set it so that the instructor can review it first. And
mhm.
sometimes AI can review it for you, and it might flag one, and you have to go check it to make sure that it truly is how it had interpreted it. But there are ways that if you like it coming up live like it is, unfettered, that's fine. Or you can set it so that you can approve the settings. The only reason I even really think about that much is because I used to be a K-12 teacher. So
Oh, yes,
a little
absolutely.
bit different
K-12, I would
interaction
moderate
setting.
everything.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to dig too deep into the settings here, but I will give you a resource where you can find them. I do see the question in the chat too. For the content moderation settings, the default is the AI moderation, so it will automatically flag any, swear words or obvious things. But within that those settings, you can also set it so that you need to manually approve everything. The question in the chat says, can the teacher see who everything is? See who everyone is? That's going to also depend on your settings. So I have my settings set so that you do not need to sign in. You don't need to authenticate in any way. That's why some of these names say Polite Firefly, whereas Laura's name is her own name. She typed it in. You can change those settings. Your settings menu is here so that if you do want to confirm like this is so-and-so, then they would need to create an account. They would need to sign in. It could be done through their Dell Tech Google accounts. It doesn't need to be anything complicated like that. So the example we just did is a good community building, informal, getting to know each other activity. Padlet is also a really good tool for check-ins. So what I have here is a wins and wonders board. So in this hypothetical class, my students have started project one. The directions for the wins column say to share something you've accomplished while working on project one. It could be an idea, a challenge you overcame. Students would then post beneath with their wins, their successes. The wonders then would be questions. Obviously, if we have students who have a question about the assignment, the ideal situation would be that they ask us as soon as possible, but sometimes students will need that prompting, and this is sort of your opportunity to give them an excuse to ask the question. The other nice thing too is that students will be able to view each other's questions. So if one student still really doesn't want to ask that question, another student might ask it for them. Here, the examples are a student is asking for feedback, another student happens to jump in before the instructor does. It's just another way that you can get students to get their questions answered, even if it's not from you. And you can still get that feedback of, oh, okay, this is what people are successful in. This is where they're still having questions. They might not have any, they might have a ton. And even if students are not asking directions questions, it's going to give you a good idea of what might be going on in their heads as they're completing this project. So now that we've seen some examples, let's recap how Padlet can support. It's quick to use with no sign-in required, although sign-in can be mandated if that is your choice. It's a good informal tech tool to integrate into your classroom. There are multiple layout options. That's something I didn't point out with this one. The one we did together with the winter break, it was just all the posts appeared in the order that they were posted. This is 2 columns, so students would post underneath the appropriate column, and there are other options as well. It is nice to see all posts on one page with no needs to click around like you might if you were doing a discussion board on Brightspace. You'd need to click into all the threads, which sometimes is more appropriate, but other times we want everyone to see everything without clicking around. And then circling back to the title of this Lunch and Learn, Padlet has that potential to amplify human presence by giving voice to those students who might not be willing or able to speak up during a live class discussion. And that doesn't mean we don't want to do live class discussions. They're super valuable, but there might be some students who don't participate. It might be that they don't speak English as their first language and they feel uncomfortable talking, or it might be that others are more active and they just can't get a word in. Using a tool like Padlet is going to allow everyone to be able to speak up and hear from everyone else in the class. It can even be a good jumping off point for that live discussion. Students post first, and then we launch into the class discussion. So in the chat, what Laura has posted, one is a previous recording of a Lunch and Learn from this semester where I go into more detail about all of those Padlet settings. So if you are curious about what the settings look like, what your options are, that Lunch and Learn will dig more deeper into them. And it is time-stamped too. So if you go into the YouTube description and you're just looking for one specific topic, the timestamps are in there. The other one, if you prefer to read, is our Padlet reference guide, which also, again, will go through more information about settings and your options or things like that. So with that in mind, in the chat, or you can unmute absolutely if you would like to, how can you use Padlet to build community or to check in with your students? What ideas do you have, either in the chat or unmute, whichever you prefer? Great for first day icebreakers, absolutely. getting to know you session at the beginning. Definitely, no, I agree. That's how I've used it in the past a lot too. I like this. Great for thinking of how students are solving problems, especially in a subject like math, like where they may be doing things differently. Um, Laura suggested using it as an information repository. Yes, I've seen lots of those before where maybe the information is posted in different columns. There are different links or resources students can go to. Ideas on educational websites that could help them learn. Yes, it doesn't have to be a check-in. It can be a resource hub helping students think outside the box, definitely when you can see other people's responses. Exit tickets in some classes where students are writing what they learned, and sometimes they still have that question. If you're doing it on a sticky note, maybe only the instructor is seeing it. Padlet is a good option to switch to if you want others to see, or if you want to maybe do it asynchronously. Something to note, and it is in the YouTube session that we shared, is that there are limits on free Padlets. However, there are lots of ways to get around those limits, and we talk about that there. And another suggestion for exit tickets. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to switch to a Brightspace feature that will allow you to provide audio and video feedback for your students. So when we leave feedback, we often do it by writing it out or by leaving inline feedback on a student's assignment. And both of these are extremely helpful because it gives students that written list they can return to, or in the case of inline feedback, they see exactly where they need to go to make their changes. Adding audio or video feedback where students can hear your voice, see your face, is one more way to build that personal connection. This doesn't need to be done all the time, but when it is done, it's a way that can better convey tone that might not come across in your writing, especially because students will get the visual, if you're using a video, social cues or the social cues of the tone of your voice. It might make it less intimidating for them to get that feedback if it's not just the written list. It can also be done in conjunction with writing if you would like students to have both. And much like that written feedback, audio and video feedback can be done directly within Brightspace with no need for an external tool. So for this section, I'm going to work with screenshots instead of going live because enabling my camera and microphone on Brightspace while it's also enabled on Zoom is a recipe for disaster. And we already did the When Tech Gets Stuck session, so no need to repeat that. So in this screenshot, you can see I have pulled up a student submitted assignment, and we see the feedback text box here. There is more than one way to provide audio and video feedback. I'll show you both, but I'm going to go into more detail with the one that I personally prefer. So one that is right in your face, easy to see, is that here underneath the overall feedback box, there are two links. One says record audio and the other says record video.
Real
If you
quick,
click,
Christina,
Mhm.
here's the honesty, transparency. How many people noticed those buttons before, and how many people like they didn't even really register? They're just kind of secret there.
I know that's how I feel with a lot of Brightspace things. Brightspace has a million options for everything, which is great, but also makes it so that you know your like three things that you do and everything else is kind of a blur. That's how it is for me at least. So these buttons are there. If you click them, they will allow you to attach an audio or video file directly to your feedback. And that one way works. I'll show you why I prefer the other. When you do, this, for example, is a video I attached. It's going to show up as an attachment. I was lazy here and I did not give it a name, which is why it is this crazy string of letters. But it would say summary feedback if that's what I had titled it. If I were to click update, this is how it would appear to students. So when students go to view their feedback, they would see it as an attached file, which again would not have a crazy name if I had taken the 2 seconds to give it one. And this feedback would pop open in a new window. They could listen to it or view it, and that would work just fine. However, sometimes asking students to make that one extra click to open the video, go to the new tab, watch the video, or listen to the audio is enough to prevent them from engaging with the feedback that you spent so much time making. And that is not a judgment on students because that is absolutely what I would do. If I see there's a link I need to click, I'm just going to click out of it and not pay attention to it. There's a lot going on. I might not even notice it because it's buried here. I might just see the score and move on, which is why I prefer the other way to include audio and video feedback, which is to include a video note. And this I will walk through all the directions for. So a video note can be done through the Insert Stuff button. Video note is just what the feature is called. It can be audio only. The reason I would recommend this is because if you add your recording this way, it will embed the video or audio file directly into the feedback box instead of attaching it as a separate file. This is also something you can do for quiz feedback or feedback on a discussion post. That video note feature exists there because the Insert Stuff button exists there as well. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click the Insert Stuff button. This will bring us to the Insert Stuff menu. And if you look down towards the bottom, you see this option for video note. So that's what we're going to select, Add Video Note. From here, you'll be brought to the Brightspace video recorder. This is the exact same interface you would see if you were to have hit those record audio or record video links beneath the feedback box. The only difference is that this recorder will give you the option to do both, whereas if you had hit those links, it would have only given you the option to do whatever you had selected. So if you had hit record audio, it only would have given you the audio option. If you want to record just your audio here, there's a little toggle that says audio only, and that's how you would get that. Otherwise, it's going to default to video. We want to make sure we've enabled our camera and microphone on our browser. Usually, most of us have this set up, but if you click on Insert Video and it's not popping up, that's a good first place to troubleshoot. Did you enable your camera and microphone? If for some reason you wanted to record a recording somewhere else, there is an option to upload a file, but most of us, for our purposes, are going to want to do everything all in one place because it's easier. So when you're ready to record your feedback, you would select this button here that says New Recording. You will know the recording has started because the time here will start ticking up, and because that New Recording button will change to say Stop Recording. There's a 30-minute limit on recordings, but I don't think anyone is going to come anywhere close to that limit because if you have 30 minutes worth of things to say, chances are you're going to meet with the student one-on-one or do something else. But that limit is there. Once you think you are done, we'll hit the Stop Recording button. So from here, you'll be able to replay your video or your audio recording if you'd like. If you don't like the way it turned out, you can hit New Recording and it will start over. Once you're happy with your video, there's a button here that says Next. This will bring you to a screen where you can add a title and description. Definitely add a title, otherwise it's a weird string of letters as the file name. The thing you need to do is check this box here that says automatically generate captions from audio because that's an accessibility requirement. To get the captions, you'll also need to select your language. Unfortunately, there is not a reasonable way to edit these captions, but in my experience, they're pretty decent. I imagine they might get a little funky if you were to use a lot of proper nouns, names, terms, but that's something you can clear up with some written feedback. So once you have selected your language and generated your captions, we're going to go ahead and click Next. Your video will take some time to process. How long it takes will depend on how long you recorded, but in my experience, it's not much time. You can still select the Insert button while your video is processing. It will just show up as blank. So this is going to bring you back to the assignment. Once your video is done processing, you'll be able to see the thumbnail. There's me, very intent, wearing the same jacket, sitting at my desk. You can add text here. You can use anything else within the HTML editor that you'd like, or you can leave it as just the video. But we see it's embedded. It's not attached as a separate file. And once you're ready, we'll click Update. And now the student view looks different. Instead of showing the link, it shows the embedded video. So I did have to click the little caret here that said more, but I was seeing like the top half of this video, so I could see that something was there rather than needing to click the link. Again, this is just my personal preference. I like having things embedded right there so they're easy to see. The record audio and record video links are going to do the same end result.
And just to
Um,
reiterate,
mhm.
the reasons we are talking about video and audio, again, we're trying to bring that humanity back into our classrooms. So that's another way that we provide that connection. They get to hear more social cues connected to your words. And research has shown that if you do provide that video or that audio, you're more likely to give more information than if you have to type it anyway. But that being said, it's not an expectation or even a thought that it would be for every single assignment that you would do this. The idea is that it will really help, for instance, maybe some of those initial assignments while you're really developing that community. Maybe there's a first draft, a rough draft, and then your final. So at the rough draft, before they're going to turn in the final version, you're giving them some more in-depth feedback on their papers or on their projects. It's finding that strategic place and using it sparingly. If you leave an audio or video note for absolutely every single assignment, it will get old also. The whole point is to keep some of that engagement in there, some of that excitement in there, and provide the opportunities to feel that human connection in a variety of ways. So I just wanted to add that into the conversation so people didn't feel overwhelmed. Oh my gosh, video for everything. No, that's not it. And really, as we were talking about it, 3 to 5 minute videos are probably the most that you want to do anyway. And I want to remove this thought from you because Christina did say if you can choose new video until you're happy with your video. Don't be overly critical of yourself because your students, research shows students prefer videos that are from instructors that look like they're real people. So they don't expect you to edit out every single or every little thing. If you accidentally say something completely wrong that will take them down a different rabbit hole, well, yeah, definitely redo that. But if it's just a couple of ers and ahs or the dog barked in the background, I mean, you decide. They like to know that, or the cat. I know people, their
The cat
cat
part.
walks by, right? You decide what what impact that might have had on the video or not. But I just want to put those things out there for you too. The idea is this is supposed to be a nice, fun, engaging way, a different way for you to engage as well, to help enhance or supplement all of the written messages that you give as well.
Yeah, absolutely. A video for everything would be overwhelming. And that's a really good segue into our question, which again, you can unmute and share, or you're welcome to type in the chat. When, in your experience, might you choose to provide audio or video feedback? Initial assignments or end of course assignments. Both are very good options. Different reasons, but both definitely. Initial would likely be what Laura was saying with providing the feedback on how to get to that end of course assignment. But the end of course assignment, you don't have to necessarily write everything out. You might not need to provide that inline feedback. You might be sharing what you feel overall. During exam assessments, the insert stuff button, that video note is something that exists in multiple Brightspace locations when it's more beneficial to get your point across. Yes, if you have a lot to say, it might be less intimidating for students to see a 3-minute video instead of a 3-paragraph long list of feedback. Adding extra encouragement or praise. Yes, you can write it out, but it's very different, like Laura was saying, for students to be able to see you, to hear your excitement. We even talked about them seeing us using our hands, that social
Melissa,
cue.
Melissa, I'm so glad you went to the kudos too. And that's a great thing
Hmm.
that you point out because in one of my courses, it was really interesting. I hadn't had people respond like they needed to, and the time was coming, right? And so I put in the little thing, a little tickler that said, oh, make sure that you get in there for that discussion board, make sure you do it. I left them a video after that because everyone responded. uh, by the next day, and I left them a video say, I just had to tell you and let you see how excited I was that you answered the call and you responded. And I feel like that added impact to the message rather than just saying it, because I do like to use three exclamation points, but sometimes it doesn't always, convey the message that you want. And Christina, there was one thought too. Remember when you selected language, when you had
Hmm.
the opportunity to select language? Just to clarify also, it's not the language you wish it was in. It's the language that it is in. So when you're doing that, it really just helps the computer, the system, be able to recognize your words with better accuracy, so that it can put them into writing to complement your video. But it does not translate for you. But I wish that it did. That would be lovely. And there are several other programs out there that can do things like that for you. But this one does not. You just want to choose the actual language that you're speaking.
Yeah, that's a good point. It would be amazing if we could translate it into whatever language a student is most comfortable in, but unfortunately, this is just for generating those captions. All right. So we have one last tech enhancement to talk about, and that is surveys. So most of us have either conducted a survey before or participated in a survey. We are all very familiar with surveys. They are an excellent way to check in with students, whether about how they're feeling about the class in general. It can be like a mid-course evaluation, or it can be how they're doing with a specific assignment. For any survey in general, you can make it anonymous if you want to encourage students to share how they feel without the threat of feeling judged, or you can have them submit with their names so you get a better idea of who specifically needs what in your class. As I'm sure we've all experienced, there are many, many survey tools out there. But today we're going to talk about the survey tool within Brightspace, because it's not one that's utilized a lot. Many of us are more familiar with other tools. One big reason you might choose to do a Brightspace survey instead of a survey through another tool is to keep everything within the LMS, which can help you with course copying. So I personally have always done Google surveys before, and they are great. However, when I want to copy that survey to another class, I need to create a copy of the survey so all of my responses aren't going to the same place. Because generally speaking, I want, a different set of responses for each section. If you create the survey in Brightspace, you will be able to copy that content to your other sections, to your other semesters without having to generate that new link. You might prefer still another survey tool instead. It's really about what your purpose is and what's going to be best for your workflow. So setting up a Brightspace survey is very similar to setting up a Brightspace quiz. So if you have made a quiz, the process for adding your questions should be very familiar. And then, as is the case with any survey tool, you're going to be able to see results either anonymously, by individual, with the group as a whole, whatever is going to get you the most relevant information for your purposes. So like I think we mentioned this, there are many ways to do things in Brightspace. I'm just going to show you some options, and then I will provide a resource that specifically walks through how to create surveys. One way to get to surveys is through the nav bar. It will be that last option under activities. After you select surveys, you're going to be brought to a list of any existing surveys that you have, as well as the option to create a new survey. And then from here, you'll start navigating your options. So what you need to do to move on is you need to give the survey a name. In my case, the name of my survey is the word survey spelled wrong. I noticed that 5 minutes before this started. If you have many surveys, you can sort them into categories. One of the big important features here is this checkbox. You can make results anonymous if you do not want to collect names. Finally, to add your questions here, there's the Add Edit Questions button. And again, since there are so many options, we won't go through all of them, but the setup is similar to a quiz, and the resource I will share will walk through what those survey options are. But they're very similar to the options you'd get on any survey tool, multiple choice, a Likert scale, a fill in the blank. Another thing to note about your I skip one about your survey setup is that you can write a description, which is wonderful for giving directions, but you can also change your submission message. So the submission message can be simple, just a thank you for your input, or it's another opportunity for you to remind students about what they need to do next. Thank you for providing your input. Don't forget that XYZ is due on this date. Just another chance to communicate with them. If you go back and select the caret beside your finished survey, you'll see that one option is statistics and one option is reports. So statistics will show you who has taken your survey with names if it's not anonymous, as well as any attempts they have made if you have allowed for multiple attempts. Reports will allow you to consolidate feedback in a format of your choice. And again, this is one of those Brightspace things where there are so many options. You can generate a report into an Excel file. You can generate it into an HTML page. It's going to depend on what your preference is. So if I were to select reports, you would need to add the report that you like by selecting the Add Reports button. And then from there, you can decide how you would like your feedback to be formatted and what you would like. I know I'm zooming through these settings a little bit, but there are a lot, and a lot will depend on your preferences. So again, the requirement, just like setting up the survey, is it needs to have a name. Other than that, you will be able to choose what you like. So it will default to a summary report, meaning a summary of all the responses you've gotten. If you would like, you can also select to view just individual attempts. You can even hide user information if you would like. Next, you'll select when you want the results to be published. The default will be immediately, but if you are waiting for students to answer your survey, they have not gotten a chance yet, you can select a release date. Here, this part is cut off because it is a very extensive list. You will need to select who you would like to release the report to. Generally speaking, you're going to select the instructor role because that will go to you, but there are many roles within our LMS. It's a long list. Instructors are default. So I want to show some examples of how questions can look. This is an example of how a survey question would look in a report. This is from IDTG01. It's shown via an HTML page because that's a nice visual for us in a format like this on Zoom. An Excel sheet would be a little difficult to navigate through. You're probably not going to ask students this question, but you probably will ask a question that allows them to choose multiple responses. So we can see here that most of the respondents were from the Owens campus. You can see a breakdown by number and by percentage. A question you are more likely to ask in this format would be something like this. What is your level of comfort after this unit of study? So in this case, the report is just showing one student. You could also have this as a summary report, but instead, because we're showing just this one student, I can see, okay, student number 2 said they were great, so, I don't need to worry about that person. And just different views for different things, 1,000 options on Brightspace. Another view I'd like to show is text responses. So the question was, which resource, helped you the most? And we can see the text response formatted here. I do like the formatting of this better than a formatting of a Google or Microsoft form. I feel like the text responses always get truncated on that. This question was a fill in the blank, and we can see how this particular individual responded. Again, the survey tool you're going to choose is going to depend on your needs and how you prefer to view feedback, but it's good to know that there is an option that lives within Brightspace. Before we move on, again, if we have Brightspace specific questions, Laura is going to drop in the chat a instructional video that walks through the survey directions a little bit more step by step because there are so many options. But what I'd like us to think about is what kind of survey information would be most helpful for you.
I think muddiest point if you're teaching, because then you know, like, oh, I really missed the mark here because everybody's saying they don't understand.
Yeah, Muddy's point is always one of my go-tos. I also see how students feel class is going so far in the semester. Yes, that's a very common one I've seen done through Brightspace as a mid-semester assessment.
We talked about exit tickets, and this could be
Mhm.
another way that you could have one of these set up that could be an exit ticket um, when your students are leaving. The value of it is that you would be able to have it then on your computer and instead of having all those little post-it notes on the way out the door. But we also talked about how Padlet could be a valuable way. So really it's just trying to find that idea. And one of the things is if you have a Padlet every week as your or every session as your exit ticket, that will get old quickly too. So at least this gives you another tool that you could have a couple of different kinds of exit tickets to keep that interest level up and to keep your students more engaged.
Absolutely. Another one I thought of is I would do quick surveys of how far are you in the project, and I would provide different what's the word I'm looking for? Different checkpoints, like, oh, I haven't started yet. I have my idea, but I haven't started working. I have an outline, but I haven't started drafting. Points like that. And then I would ask the class to, submit their survey responses so I could see about how far everyone was. So if a lot of people hadn't started yet, then I can provide more support, or I could see about where everyone is. Question in the chat, can it be used like an anonymous quiz? Yes. There is that checkbox that you would need to select to have results come in anonymously. Another good thing about surveys versus a quiz too is this is not graded. It can't be linked to the grade book. Even if you were to use a 0 point quiz, a quiz that doesn't count, students see the survey and know this does not count against me in any way. Even if I say I haven't started the project, it's not a grade. But that anonymous option is there.